Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, the opposition House Leader on resumption of the legislature next week. But first, let's kick things off with our politics panel and a bombshell floor crossing. Joining us this evening, former MLA Karen McPherson and Barry Morishita, former leader of the Alberta Party and a former mayor of Brooks. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with a surprise development early this morning. Edmonton Riverbend MP Matt Jeneroux crossing the floor from the Conservatives to the Carney Liberals.
It's a great honor to be on the same team as you at a crucial time for this city, for this province, for this country.
For me, it felt disingenuine and quite simply wrong to be sitting on the sidelines anymore. So I reached out to the Prime Minister's office and will be joining his caucus, and I couldn't be more proud.
The Prime Minister in Edmonton this morning welcoming the former Conservative MP into the Liberal fold. Matt Jeneroux is the third to cross the floor in as many months. He had initially announced late last year he would be stepping down entirely as an MP, though had yet to do so. Karen, okay, you know a thing or two about potential dynamics at play here, having left the NDP as an MLA to first sit as an independent and then later joining the Alberta Party caucus. What do you make of how this has gone from Matt Jeneroux leaving politics to suddenly crossing to the Liberals?
Well, my first thought is something about the Liberals' offer gave him the sense of work-life balance that he was looking for, because his premise when he left the CPC and he said he was going to leave politics or leave his position as an MP was that he wanted to spend more time with his family. So hopefully that's part of what he's negotiated for himself. And it is a very big decision to make when you decide to cross the floor, and taking a time out as an independent certainly offers the opportunity for reflection as well as consultation with constituents, which is really important. People, have expressed some anger about Jeneroux crossing the floor. And it is part of our Westminster parliamentary system. We don't have a perfect system. This is part of the system. And I think the way he's gone about it lends credibility to his decision.
Barry, on that point of consultation, how is this likely to go over? An Alberta Conservative MP crossing to the Liberal government?
Well, it's never very smooth. We know that in the past it hasn't gone well in the next election if they choose to run after crossing the floor in that regard. But I've watched Matt for several years, and as Karen said, to take the time to be considerate of what your best role is. I think Matt's taking that role quite seriously. But I think it's an underlying problem for the Conservatives too. Like you said, it's the third crossing. It comes on the heels of the membership voting overwhelmingly to support Pierre Poilievre. But there are serious problems in caucus, and either a lot of members aren't being truthful, or the leader is not really regarded as someone they can trust to talk to about some of the issues. So there are some serious problems for Pierre Poilievre going forward. I think this just emphasizes them more again.
Karen, Pierre Poilievre issued a statement that says Mark Carney is trying to seize a costly Liberal majority through dirty backroom deals, and that Matt Jeneroux has betrayed the people of Edmonton Riverbend. What hangs on how the Conservative leader manages this particular floor crossing?
It's a trend. 2, you might be able to make some sort of excuse for, but 3, there's definitely a trend towards caucus members leaving, being dissatisfied, acting in ways that aren't in alignment with a whipped caucus. And once there's that schism between caucus and the leadership, I don't think it bodes very well for the leader. On the flip side, for the Liberals to try and gain a majority through floor crossings is kind of cynical. And, I think most Canadians would rather see a minority government that works in concert with the opposition parties rather than using political machinations to try and gain a majority. So it remains to be seen. I don't think this is a very good indicator for Pierre Poilievre, and makes you kind of wonder about the 87% of delegates that supported him in the recent leadership review and how well that actually represents both caucus and the party at large.
Okay, so the Matt Jeneroux development comes in the wake of Pierre Poilievre saying he disagrees with another member of his caucus, Jamil Jivani, who called Alberta's reaction to Donald Trump's tariffs an anti-American hissy fit.
Well, he speaks for himself, and I speak for the party.
Jivani made the hissy fit comment to right-wing U.S. media outlet Breitbart News after traveling to Washington on his own last week to meet with senior U.S. government officials. He called the conversations productive. Jivani is a personal friend of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Barry, for Pierre Poilievre to respond as he has, what kind of tear do you see this development creating within the Conservative Party fabric?
Well, I think it's just more indicative that there's a lot of undertow, a lack of satisfaction with Mr. Poilievre's leadership. And it's a very strange development when you think about certainly the idea of leveraging a personal relationship to gain some sort of political advantage or some sort of insight isn't something that's new. But the way that this has happened and kind of the way it was kind of cast off a little bit by the Conservative caucus while doing what he's doing. And then for the response to be like that, kind of short and it doesn't really appear that Pierre Poilievre was all in favor of this to begin with, which again, the fact that Mr. Jivani was able to do it and doesn't seem to be suffering any consequences specifically from caucus, that there's a bit of lack of control. And as Karen said, I think the schism, this is another wedge in the leadership and the caucus, and it's going to be a very tough go for Mr. Poilievre for the next few months, I think.
Karen, what's the likelihood Jamil Jivani remains in the Conservative caucus? Is this maybe one of those situations where an MP is showing the door, or one that simply goes away, soon to be forgotten about?
Well, the whip has a lot of tools at their disposal in order to enforce the rules of caucus. So I don't know that expulsion would be the first reaction. I think there's some other things that could be taken away. Any kind of critic portfolio would be taken away. Any opportunity to speak on behalf of the party. There are a number of other things that a whip could take away to enforce caucus discipline. So I'm not sure that he'll be expelled right away. And that also would be determined through the leader's office. How much of a threat is Jivani at this point? That calculus needs to be determined. And once all of those things are determined, then the next moves, that's what we'll see. And we may not see anything publicly. It may remain behind the scenes. It is concerning for any member of a caucus to say something in the media and have the leader say something opposite to them in the media. You don't want to be fighting your fights in public. And it's not a great sign. It doesn't look like there's a lot of cohesion there.
All right, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, Opposition House Leader Christina Gray joins us to discuss the session ahead. More in a moment. Welcome back, and our politics panel returns. We heard from NDP Opposition House Leader Christina Gray before the break. Karen, what do you see the NDP needing to accomplish in this sitting if it is to make an impact, especially if it turns out the Smith government decides to pull the trigger on an early election?
They're going to want to position what their platform is during the session. They have a lot of tools at their disposal while they're in session. There's a budget to highlight, the activities of the caucus and the party while they're in session. So they're really going to want to drive home their platform, how they propose to make things better for Albertans, what their approach would be to healthcare, what their approach would be to education, and very specifically about what their stand is regarding Alberta separation. They need to make that clear, and they need to make the message attractive to the people that are kind of on the fence about separation. Some people are dissatisfied and could be swayed to vote in favor of separation, a la Brexit. But the NDP is going to have to do a very good job, a very precise job of convincing people that staying in Canada is the preferred choice, and they need to highlight that in the legislature.
Barry, based on what you heard from Christina Gray, is there one issue in particular that you see the NDP making headway with?
Well, I think it has to be in healthcare. I think that's where the crisis is. It's certainly, it's the what people are talking about between that and affordability. And I think the NDP has to come out with some concrete solutions for that. When it comes to separation, they're on the side of a majority of Albertans. So, stand them in the room and you've got 2/3 of Albertans on the same side as the NDP specifically have stated when it comes to Alberta's place in Confederation. But they need other reasons to vote for them. And I think it's really clear about some of the things that are wrong. I think it's up to Naheed Nenshi and the NDP caucus, particularly the critics' role, to define what their solutions are and how they are going to better serve Albertans. If there's an early election, this has to happen now. And if there isn't, this is a message they can build on and carry in the future. But Albertans want to see that differentiation. Why would I vote for Naheed when it comes to affordability? Why would I vote for the NDP when it comes to healthcare? Those have to be specifically laid out.
Karen, you both have brought up the issue of separation. So how do you see that divisive issue actually playing into the sitting?
Well, they're going to have to address it. It sounds like the petition has passed the threshold. There will be a committee struck to take a look at it, and that's going to spark some debate and messaging. Messaging is going to be really important. The opposition needs to be really clear up front rather than just reacting to what the messaging is from the government. And the government itself, what I would love to see from the government is clarity about whether they support the idea of separation or not, rather than just a hands-off, oh, this is what people are wanting to talk about. We need some clarity from the government. What direction do you want to see the separation vote going, rather than they're really playing to their base by not being really clear about that. And it's, as an Albertan, it's frustrating. And I think more Albertans want to see clarity from their government. Okay,
Barry, what's the likelihood of the NDP forming some type of alliance with Peter Guthrie and his new progressive Tory party, the former Alberta Party that you led? Would there be value in that?
Well, I think they're going to have to, be seen to be setting themselves to be government, and on those issues that I agree with, I think certainly they should be working with Peter and with Scott if that's what it works out. And on a lot of the issues, they do align in terms of taking different approaches. I don't think it shouldn't be a priority for them. I think they really have to separate themselves from the UCP on a lot of sense. And one of the things, the advantage they have with the separation comment and the conversation about that is that they already have the Tory party, they have Scott Sinclair online. What they see as a split caucus on the other side of the House. And I think they can find ways to exploit that going forward, because push come to shove, Albertans will want to know, as Karen said, where the UCP really stands on this issue. And if they stay in the weeds, I think it's certainly an opportunity for the NDP to take advantage of that.
Okay, so Karen, before we get to the session next week, what are you looking for then in Thursday's televised address by the Premier? What's the messaging?
I think that, it's a supportive democracy in terms of the petition going forward. I don't expect to see a clear line in the sand as to where she stands with separation, the question itself. I think she's going to be more about the process and supporting the process and what people want. That is a very kind of populist message for her, and I can see that fitting into what she's saying. I think budget-wise, we're going to see a little bit more spending, in preparation for a possible early election, all while under the auspices of a deficit.
Okay, and Barry, how much of a message do you expect Danielle Smith to extend beyond bracing Albertans for that budget?
Well, I think there has to be she's trying to create some stewardship issues for her, ones that she can take forward that she's best able to lead going forward. The separation one, she is in trouble, I think. Trying to skate that thin edge of that knife can be dangerous for her. Because it doesn't indicate, I don't think you're going to see an indication that she is going to cut spending, that she's going to kind of blame somebody for the external forces on oil prices. And I think you're going to see her come out and support the program she knows that Albertans want to see some leadership on. So I think she's going to be kind of moving off that conservative route of setting a balanced budget and being fiscal hawks here, because the political service is going to come in making sure she's seen to be leading in the areas that they're weakest in: healthcare, education, and affordability.
Okay, we're out of time, so we have to leave it there. Great to see you both. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Michael.
so much.